Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a question that probably keeps a lot of early-stage founders up at night.
Yeah.
How do you actually build that first product, the minimum viable product, or MVP? But the sources we've been looking at, they really push for a different way of thinking about it.
Yeah,
The MVP isn't just a list of features you tick off.
exactly. It's fundamentally a learning tool.
Right, a learning tool. It's designed, really, to prove specific essential outcomes with actual users. And the very first decision you make, even before tech stacks, is choosing the right structure for that learning process.
That really is the core choice, isn't it? Are you
Right.
essentially buying a prepackaged learning loop, the whole discovery, design, build, measure thing?
Okay.
Or are you going to assemble that loop yourself, piece by piece, managing quality, managing the handoffs? That choice impacts, well, everything, how fast you get proof, and critically, how stable your product is on day two.
So our mission for this deep dive is to break down the pros, the cons, the sort of hidden costs and risks involved. We're comparing using a dedicated MVP development company versus putting together a team of freelancers.
And the goal, pulled straight from the material, is pretty simple. Help you get to those signed pilots, get to revenue faster.
And there's one key metric the sources hammer home no matter which path you take. You absolutely must insist on a single North Star metric.
Yeah, just one.
Could be activation, task completion, conversion, whatever makes sense. But you need weekly demos showing real, measurable movement on that number. If the work isn't moving the needle there, you're probably building the wrong thing.
That focus on evidence, that's really what separates a successful MVP from just, an expensive hobby project. You're not just buying code.
You're buying proof.
Exactly, measurable proof points. And early on, that proof is worth way more than a big feature list. When we look at the kind of evidence you need initially, the sources really boil it down to three key questions you have to answer.
Like, what are they?
First, can a brand new user actually complete the main test without you holding their hand?
Makes sense.
Second, do enough users hit that activation milestone quickly enough to justify spending more money, your next chunk of capital?
Right. Is working well enough?
And third, this one's a bit more technical, but it's vital.
Yeah.
Is the code base you build initially going to survive? Like when you add more features, get more users, connect to other systems, will it hold up?
Or are you facing a total rewrite just a few months down the line?
Precisely. Technical bankruptcy, basically.
Okay, and this seems to be where that idea of an integrated loop from a development company comes in. They kind of bake in processes that if you use freelancers, you, the founder, have to define and manage yourself.
Yeah, they bake in a lot. Things like a solid discovery phase that ruthlessly cuts scope down to the absolute minimum needed to learn.
Not just building everything you think you need.
Right. And then there's proper UX research leading to a clickable prototype that you actually test before writing any code. Analytics wired up from day one, so you're actually tracking those key activation or completion events. And importantly, a plan for what happens after launch. The first 60, 90 days, fixing things, running small experiments, tackling tech debt.
So with a company owning that loop, the real difference is
Yeah.
who's carrying the mental load?
It's accountability and your time, fundamentally. Hire company, they own assembling the team, setting the quality bar, managing the process, running the weekly check-ins. Use freelancers, and you own all of that. You're the one connecting the designer in time zone A with the developer in time zone B. You're setting the standards.
And if your main job needs to be out talking to customers, fundraising, doing sales.
Then buying that integrated loop, the sources argue, often gets you to proof faster. It minimizes those management headaches.
Okay, let's dive into the company model then. It sounds like the big sell is predictability, coordination. What are the core strengths you sort of get right out of the box?
Predictability is a good word for it. First off, built-in coordination. You're getting a team product, UX, engineering, QA, maybe DevOps, who already know how to work together.
They have shared habits, standards.
Exactly. So handoffs are smoother, ambiguity gets sorted out faster internally.
And what about people leaving? Or getting sick?
That's the second point, continuity and coverage. If your lead back-end dev is out for a week, the project doesn't just stop. Someone else understands the architecture, can pick up the work. It reduces that single point of failure risk.
Which can be huge with a small freelancer team.
Definitely. And the third strength, maybe less obvious initially, is security and compliance awareness.
Okay, so if you're targeting bigger companies or regulated spaces like healthcare or finance.
Right. Good dev companies are usually familiar with the basics, HIPAA, PIPEDA, what SOC 2 style practices look like.
What does SOC 2 style actually mean for a founder at the MVP stage? Like, do they need the certification?
No, not the cert itself, usually. But it means the company knows the kinds of controls and processes needed. So when that enterprise buyer's security team asks, hey, what are your security practices? You have a credible answer.
It helps you pass that initial check, get the pilot moving.
Exactly. You don't need to suddenly hire a security expert just to answer a questionnaire for the MVP.
Okay, but let's talk about the elephant in the room. Cost. Those company hourly rates can look pretty steep compared to freelancers.
Yeah.
How do you square that?
That's the key thing the sources really stress. That visible hourly rate can be misleading. The potential weakness of the company model is that higher rate, yes. And maybe the process feels a bit rigid if you're a super hands-on product expert yourself.
What?
But the argument is that the higher rate often leads to a lower total project cost and faster elapsed time. Why? Because you often have less rework, fewer integration nightmares, faster decision-making within the team.
Fewer delays adding up.
Right, fewer hidden costs.
And you mentioned a boring tech
Yeah.
bias. What if I want to use the latest bleeding-edge JavaScript framework?
You'll probably get some pushback, and honestly, you should. Good dev companies tend to favor reliable, well-supported stacks. Think React, Next.js, Node, Python, Postgres.
The workhorses.
Yeah, the boring stuff that works and is easy to hire for later. They're protecting your day, too. They want to make sure that 6 months or a year down the line, you can actually maintain and scale the thing without specialized, hard-to-find talent.
So using experimental tech is a risk they try to mitigate for you.
Absolutely. Unless there's a compelling, unique reason why only that new tech will work for the core MVP function.
Okay, so the company model seems best suited for situations where you need a reliable, tested MVP within, say, 8 to 12 weeks, with all the QA and analytics built in.
That's a good summary. Or if you absolutely need that credible security story from day one to unlock those first crucial enterprise or regulated pilots.
All right, let's flip the script now.
Oh.
If the company model offers control and predictability, what's the draw for freelancers, especially for founders watching every penny?
The big draw is absolutely flexibility and targeted spend. Meaning, you pay only for the specific skills you need exactly when you need them. Need a designer for 2 weeks? Fine. Need a back-end dev part-time? Fine. You can scale up or down really quickly.
And you might find niche specialists more easily.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
If you need someone with deep expertise in a very specific AI technique or maybe a complex data visualization library, you might find that specialist freelancer easier than finding a company with that exact skill on staff immediately.
And presumably, if the founder's really driving it, things can move very fast.
They can. If you, the founder, are managing tightly, setting clear direction, you can potentially move at lightning speed without navigating layers of process.
But that speed comes with trade-offs. The sources highlight some pretty significant risks the founder takes on, right?
Oh, absolutely. Huge risks. The biggest one is project ownership. With freelancers, you are the product manager, the project manager, the QA lead, often the release manager. You own the backlog, the acceptance criteria, testing, documentation, enforcement.
That sounds like a full-time job in itself.
It often is, and that leads directly to the second major risk: coordination overhead. Managing different time zones, different work habits, variable communication styles, checking quality from multiple sources.
Yeah, I can see how that adds up.
It really does. Those little delays multiply. I've seen founders burn weeks just trying to get everyone aligned. That's where the cheaper hourly rate suddenly doesn't look so cheap anymore because you're burning runway on management time, your time.
And what happens if a key freelancer leaves mid-project?
That's the continuity risk. Unless you've been incredibly disciplined about documentation, which, let's be honest, often slips, critical knowledge just walks out the door, rebuilding that momentum can be brutal.
And security and compliance.
Compliance gaps.
Yeah.
That falls squarely on you. You have to define the security requirements, make sure they're implemented, and then you have to create that security summary document those enterprise customers will inevitably ask for.
So the freelancer route seems best if the founder or maybe a co-founder is a strong product manager or technical lead.
Exactly. If you have the expertise and, crucially, the time to own product management and the technical direction. And it works better if the scope is genuinely narrow and well-defined, like a simple dashboard or just one core feature slice.
You're basically trading your own time and management effort to save on the direct cost.
That's the trade-off, yes.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. Cost, speed, risk. The sources had a pretty interesting take comparing these across the two models. Let's start with cost. You touch on this, but the sources really hit hard on the idea that the lowest hourly rate can be a trap.
Yeah, they called it potentially the most dangerous number on your spreadsheet because that cheap hour can easily become the most expensive month when you factor in the time lost to coordination chaos, rewriting shoddy code, or having to replace someone halfway through.
That ties into speed, right?
Directly. Companies, because of those shared habits and internal processes, tend to be more consistent. You often see that 8 to 12 week time frame for a proof of concept being met reliably.
Whereas freelancer.
Can be just as fast if the founder runs an incredibly tight ship, like military precision on the project board, daily stand-ups, clear specs. But that speed is highly variable and depends entirely on the founder's execution.
Okay, so speed is more predictable with companies, potentially faster but riskier with freelancers. What about the underlying risk, especially after launch, that day two reliability?
This is where the biggest difference often lies, according to the sources. A slick demo can hide a multitude of sins, right?
Absolutely. Looks great, falls over under load.
Exactly. Companies tend to reduce those unseen risks, things like missing analytics, no automated tests, a staging environment that doesn't match production, unclear code ownership. They usually have standards for this stuff.
Whereas with freelancers, the founder has to explicitly define and enforce all those things.
Correct. You have to be the quality police. You have to demand those guardrails are built.
So what specifically protects that day two reliability? What should founders be looking for, regardless of the model?
The sources list 4 key things. First, stick to a modern, well-supported tech stack. We mentioned React, Next.js, Node, Python, Postgres. Easy to maintain, easy to hire for. Avoid niche stuff unless absolutely necessary.
Okay, boring tech wins again.
For stability, usually yes. Second, observability from week 1.
Observability. Can you break that down? What does that mean practically?
It means having structured logging and error tracking set up right from the start. So if something breaks in production, you immediately know what broke, where, and ideally how many users are affected.
So you're not flying blind when things go wrong.
Precisely. Is it affecting 5 users or 5,000? That context is crucial for prioritizing fixes and communicating with stakeholders.
Got it. What's third?
Staging parity. Your testing environment, your staging server needs to closely mirror your live production environment. Same settings, same kind of data scale ideally.
Otherwise, you find bugs after launch, not before.
Exactly. And fourth, and this is crucial especially with freelancers, a rock-solid definition of done, DoD.
What needs to be in that DoD?
It has to be more than just code works on my machine. It must include the necessary analytics events are tracked, there are automated tests covering the new code, error tracking is configured for it, and basic documentation is written. You, the founder, have to enforce this rigorously.
That sounds like a lot to enforce.
It is, but it's what protects you later.
Okay, let's shift to some absolute non-negotiables, things you just have to get right, especially if you're eyeing enterprise deals. Security and privacy basics first.
Yeah, even for a V1 MVP, you need the fundamentals. Role-based access control users only see what they're supposed to see. Principle of least privilege for system access.
No giving everyone admin rights.
Please, no. And proper secrets management. No API keys checked into GitHub or shared in Slack. Encryption is mandatory, both for data moving across the network in transit and data stored in the database at rest.
And you need some kind of plan if things go wrong.
At least a basic incident response outline. Who calls whom if there's a breach or major outage? Knowing the first steps is critical.
And for those regulated industries or big enterprise clients. You mentioned SOC2 and HIPAA before.
Right. You don't need the full certification for an MVP pilot usually, but buyers in those sectors expect you to demonstrate competence. They want to see you're thinking about security and privacy controls from the start.
How do you demonstrate that without the cert?
Often, a simple 2-page security and privacy overview document, maybe with a basic data flow diagram, is enough for those early conversations. It shows you've thought about data handling, access controls, encryption. It answers the first round of questions on their security questionnaires and keeps the pilot discussions alive.
It builds confidence.
Exactly. It shows maturity.
And the last non-negotiable, intellectual property. Who owns the code?
This is critical. You, the founder, or your company must own all the code and any other work product created upon final payment.
How do you ensure that?
With development companies, it's usually standard in their contracts. With freelancers, you absolutely must have this explicitly stated in your contract and make sure they sign it. And importantly, if your freelancer uses subcontractors, the contract needs to ensure those subs also assign IP rights to you. No ambiguity allowed here.
Okay, super important. Let's talk actionable signals now. If I'm interviewing development companies, What are the green flags? What tells me they're likely good?
Look for companies that insist on starting with a proper, even if short, discovery phase. If they just want to jump straight to coding based on your idea, that's a potential red flag.
They should want to understand the why first.
Right. They must commit to a regular weekly demo rhythm where they show working software and discuss progress against that North Star metric. Ask if they can share a sample security and privacy overview. It shows they understand modern requirements.
What about references?
Definitely check references. And
Wow.
listen for whether the references talk about business outcomes the company helped achieve. Not just that they delivered code on time.
Hmm,
Did they help validate the market? Did they help secure pilots?
good points.
Yeah.
Now, the flip side. What are the red flags if I'm putting together a freelancer team?
Be wary of anyone who seems allergic to documentation. If their process relies entirely on endless chat threads for decisions and specs, that's a danger sign for future maintenance and clarity.
Okay.
Question anyone pushing a super trendy experimental tech stack without a rock-solid business justification for why it's essential for the MVP's core learning goal. Is it really needed, or do they just want to play with a new toy?
Right, the resume-driven development
Yeah,
problem.
exactly. And a big practical red flag. If a freelancer is hesitant or refuses to grant repository access to your other contractors or even to you or your co-founder, that suggests control issues or potential future lock-in problems. Transparency is key.
Okay, that's helpful. What about mixing and matching? Are hybrid models workable? Company plus freelancers.
They can be, but the sources warn they need extremely clear structure to avoid chaos. There are a couple of patterns that seem to work sometimes.
Like what?
One pattern is having a core development company own the main loop. The backlog, the QA, the releases, the core platform. Then you might bring in a highly specialized freelancer for one specific, well-defined task, maybe some complex AI algorithm integration that the company doesn't specialize in.
So the company manages the integration of the freelancer's work.
Yes, the company owns the overall product and quality. The other pattern is when the founder is that experienced product owner or technical lead we talked about. They can potentially run a small, tight-knit freelancer squad effectively.
But tight-knit is key there.
Very key. Small team, ideally significant overlap in working hours for easier communication, and the founder runs it with very strict processes, clear definition of done, regular demos, etc.
And what are the common ways hybrid models fail?
Oh, many ways. Having lots of freelancers with no single person clearly owning the overall product and process that leads to drift installed decisions. Another failure mode is split ownership, where maybe the company does the hard backend stuff and freelancers do the UI. That often leads to finger-pointing, mismatched quality standards, and nobody feeling truly accountable for the end-to-end result. Zero overlap in working hours across key roles is also a recipe for slow progress and miscommunication.
So if you are going to try a hybrid model, what are the absolute must-have rules to make it work?
The sources boil it down to three essentials. One, there must be one unambiguous owner of the entire product loop, the backlog, the priorities, the quality standards, someone runs the main board.
Okay, single point of accountability.
Two, uniform standards. Everyone works to the same definition of done, the same quality expectations, same coding guidelines maybe.
No separate rules for different players.
Right. And three, shared visibility. Everyone works off the same backlog or project board, participates in the same demo rhythm. Transparency avoids surprises and keeps everyone aligned.
Okay, that clarifies things a lot. So wrapping up this deep dive, the core takeaway really seems structural, doesn't it? It's about how you, the founder, decide to resource the journey to proof.
Exactly. Do you need that integrated managed loop from a company because your focus has to be elsewhere, or because you value the built-in predictability, security posture, and day two readiness?
Or do you have the necessary product leadership skills, the technical confidence, and crucially, the time to actively manage the coordination, the quality, and the technical choices yourself with a freelancer team, likely saving some direct costs but taking on more management burden?
That's the fundamental trade-off, and whichever way you lean, there are some protective actions you absolutely must take.
Let's recap those quickly.
First, be ruthless about scope. Limit that V1 MVP to just 1 to 3 absolutely essential user flows needed to test your core hypothesis.
Don't try to boil the ocean.
Please don't.
Yeah.
Second, pick that single North Star metric and review progress against it religiously every single week. Does the work map to moving that number?
Got it.
And third, demand the basics of professional development. weekly demos of working software, immediate access to the code repository for transparency, and enforce that clear definition of done. We talked about events, tests, error tracking, docs.
It sounds like the real currency here isn't just code, it's proof. It's evidence.
That's the final thought, really. The ultimate goal isn't just a functional act. It's validated evidence that you're building something people actually need and will potentially pay for. Whichever team you choose, company or freelancers, your job is to demand they show you, consistently and clearly, how their work each week is moving the needle on the metric that proves your case.
Because that's how you turn an idea on a napkin into a real product that finds its place in the market.
That's how you build something customers choose.